What's up, everybody? Thralls of Metal back once again with an album review. I am Rin.
I am Necrotic Nick.
And we got something different for you today. This is the 5th album by the Viking folk. Not sure how I classify it.
Neo-folk?
Neo-folk?
Which means new folk, I think.
In Fjorden. Wardruna with the album Kvitravn. Kvitravn?
Convertible van.
Convertible van.
Kvitravn? It translates to White Raven. Thank you for putting all the translations in this. This comes out on the 22nd of January on By Norse Music, but also on Columbia Records, which I thought was really interesting. Now that I think is for like international distribution, so you're technically on a major label, and way to go.
Yeah.
This band formed in 2003 in Bergen, Norway, and was started by Einar Selvik and Gall of Gorgoroth. They definitely wanted to do something a lot different than Gorgoroth, because this sounds nothing like Gorgoroth. Yeah. And yeah, this is, wow, I mean, it's really kind of hard to describe. This is probably the least metal thing we've reviewed, but it is surprisingly very fitting, not just because we have, you know, some black metal royalty technically in there, but it's dark, it's foreboding, but epic. Heavy
in weight.
Yes. Everything about this is just kind of heavy and layered, densely layered. The first track, oh man, Turnsight, it kind of goes into like isolated chants and then like droning melodies. And when it comes down to like the background of this, there's almost this steady hum of something.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what it is. It could be synths. I'm reasonably sure I saw some keyboards that are in some of the live performances, but I know that these guys love like traditional folk in terms of like instruments, and well, you can tell them what sort of instruments they play.
Well, we got a Talglaharpa, Kruth, Bukahorn, flute, you know, a flute. Leglik, Kraveklir, Toskinlir, Hurdy-gurdy, drums.
I'm only familiar with a couple of those characters from Lord of the Rings, but
yeah,
they all are on here. And it's interesting how they incorporate that, because, I mean, it's very much folk. It screams folk, but there is something kind of different about it in terms of like the dark ambience. And you can tell throughout this that this band has at least a metal background.
Yeah.
It's definitely music it's non-metal by metalheads.
Right, yeah. It's got a heavy vibe, cinematic, anthemic, large words.
I mean, honestly, when I was listening to actually the entire album, but I mean, singular tracks right away, the title track, which I'm not saying that word again.
Driftvan.
Yeah, it's something like Dripped Van.
Dripped Van.
But it instantly had like that cinematic feel, like you were saying, like when I was telling you about it, I was like, dude, I was listening to this and I was thinking about like sweeping drone shots over mountaintops and the sky is gray, and then you literally showed me the video for the
video,
song.
and that's what it is.
And it was like, well, all right. And it's interesting because like this whole album, it feels like there has to be like some sort of visual accompaniment. Like you need kind of that level, because this whole thing is about that atmosphere. There are, you know, chants, there are animal howls, there's
raven cries,
whatever noise an elk makes. It's, whoa, something like that. And that too, possibly. But it really kind of just transports you to all things Norway. Like, I didn't think of any other place. There wasn't anything that screamed, oh, that could be like a nice pleasant beach in the sun. No.
Atlanta.
No, none of that. The sun does not shine on this album at all.
Waterfalls, frozen forests, elks, goats.
All that.
Burning
villages.
Villages.
People.
Yeah. The slaughtered monk sanctuary.
I love all the percussion on here. The percussion is one of the things that kind of just kept this thing moving. And I just love the incorporation of like lots of different drums. Like you get the giant like deer skin war drum, which I know that's actually on there.
Yeah. What it's called, we don't know.
You know, it's probably another really hard to pronounce word.
It's not Tama or Pearl. It's Bambi.
Stretched out. But
stretched out Bambi. Bambi Billy.
He lost weight.
Yeah.
A lot of it. Most of it.
We ate the rest though. Nothing goes to waste. Yeah.
His mom was way more filthy.
Tenderloin.
But I mean, like, all the sort of like war march kind of feel like, and it's like interesting, like some of it feels like, you know, we're riding into battle. Some of it feels like this is kind of the post-battle, that will just kind of calm down here and count our losses.
Preparing for battle.
All of that. Every pretty much phase of battle, I would say these guys cover. And I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say it, that I think their drum circles are a lot cooler than their hippie drum circles here in the States.
Well, and the song Skug, Shadow. It is a drum circle, but not a hippie one. Preparing for war, not preparing for peace. The smell you smell is not patchouli, but the burning of mine enemies. I'm here for a peace offering. Just kidding, it's a bone axe to your chest.
I mean, I'm sure they did like some fun stuff afterwards, like, you know, hacky sacks, except those hacky sacks were probably covered in spikes or just the severed heads of their enemies.
And then you drag someone to their tent and forcefully make love to them. You know, blood eagles for fun.
It's a fashion statement.
It is.
Now, there were a couple of moments in here that I thought were a little metal-ish. Speech of the Fetch, which I am not going to try to pronounce.
Fleetogal.
Yeah, no. Opening up with raining, again with the atmosphere, really cool. And there is a bounce, like a very Children of the Grave, like dun 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 dun. Like it has that feel, except without the guitars. It's drums and I guess like a strumming of whatever instrument that I can't pronounce, but it has a metal feel. There's an aggression to it, and even the chants sort of pick up. And the vocals on this album are incredible.
Majestic.
Layered harmonies left and right.
Einar has got the voice of, well, I don't know if Thor sings, not the Hemsworth fella, but the real one. He probably sounds like him.
The intonation is really interesting, and that might be just the language, or it might be actually just like part of the traditional delivery. I don't know. I know exactly nothing about Norwegian folk, even after this. I feel like I know possibly less, but I know that I really liked it, and the vocals really drive this. Like the chants are, you know, interesting. There's sometimes just like a rhythmic breath that's sort of like a syncopated thing, and then it kind of layers in with the drums. And again, it has a metal-like intensity, like in terms of that, like sort of feel like getting you ramped up, but it's not metal.
No, there's no distortion pedals. There's male and female vocals. Lindy Faye Hella is the female credited on the album, and her howling and yarling and I don't know. Good stuff.
Munin or Munin, memory, that's what that means. That one actually has some cool, like, higher register vocals, and this is where I swear there are synths. Like, there's, like, some very lush atmosphere across it. Like, it is the most, like, layered part, I think, on this. It's just these waves of droning atmosphere, which droning atmosphere is all over this. Like, in the background at any time, again, you hear, like, this sort of steady rhythmic hum, and it's something. I don't know what it is.
It could be a throat singing voice. It could be a hurdy-gurdy. It could be a ram's horn.
We have those.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's something that's there in the bottom, holding the low end.
It's really interesting because again, that's like sort of the heaviness, and like there's like spots there where that kind of supplements for like a heavy bass tone or a heavy guitar tone. I mean, I'd like to think it isn't, you know, like a choir, like, all right, hold your breath. All right, now let it all out for the next 6.5 minutes. And no one passes out. And the song White Stag, again, I'm not trying to try the...
Guilt yours.
Yeah, nope, I don't, that might have been close. I don't know. I tried Google Translate and it still confused the hell out of me.
Guilt yours.
This one actually is the first one that I really started hearing the horns in. And I mean, I honestly, it sounded like a saxophone, just a little bit.
Probably wasn't.
Definitely wasn't, but it did. And I kind of like the fact that it was like a little jazzy. Like it kind of felt like smooth and not as anthemic. It sounded like Miles Davis riding into battle on a horse. But it was definitely probably like a goat horn or a ram's horn or someone like blowing into a human skull. I don't know.
He's
it could
a cool
be all
cat.
those.
He's a cool cat.
He was a cool guy, definitely.
Swirling smoke and the clanging of steel against shield. The drums and horns provide a soundtrack for victory earned in blood.
And strangely enough, this reminded me of Peter Gabriel too, which kind of takes the Viking edge off of probably everything. But again, it's that whole world music sort of thing, and how, again, that kind of incorporates into like modern music, because this has like hooks and melodies that I think would appeal to anyone. Like, you don't just have to be a folk fan to really dig this. It has like great appeal in terms of just like, you know, melody, atmosphere. It can be played in the background, it can be played in the foreground. It just kind of works.
Einar does a lot of music for the TV show Vikings and for the soundtrack Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So you may or may not have heard his music in the background of a show and or video game.
He's a great composer.
Yeah.
I will flat out say that. Like, the one thing I noticed about like a lot of the songs is there are a lot of slow builds. Like, they keep building, they add a layer, they get stronger, they're more dynamic, maybe more intense, maybe more sullen. And you know, going into this, I was like, all right, I'm not the biggest folk person or even like folk metal, but I was kind of expecting, I was like, all right, this is going to be maybe a little kitschy, a little too happy, like hobbits dancing around. No, these hobbits are not happy. This is very sullen.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like kind of depressive, but it still feels anthemic. So you get this kind of contrast in moods.
And using the term folk is weird in this, because it's like, when I think of folk, it's like Bob Dylan or Joan Baez or something. This is not that. This is fire, woods, no electricity, horns with mead, mutton, right?
Yeah,
mutton.
yeah. A whole leg of whatever animal you
Some
find.
sort of meat.
Yeah.
And loincloths.
Dying,
furs, a lot of furs.
Dying young in battle and gruesomely.
And making your own weapons out of steel and bone.
That is pretty much the feel across the board on this. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like, I was like kind of surprised. This is literally my first exposure to this band. I've heard Rin make mention of it before, and I haven't watched the show Vikings, so yeah, I gotta get around to that, because apparently the soundtrack is at least pretty damn wicked.
Yeah, and it's violent.
And violence is great.
There's boobs.
Okay, I'm sold.
And male butts.
Not sold.
No, I don't know.
As a first exposure to this band, I definitely dug it, and I'm gonna give this 4 stars. I think this is a really interesting listen. Again, not metal, not metal at all, but again, it's non-metal done by metalheads, and I think it kind of shows metalheads have a unique approach to music outside of metal.
Yes.
It's still dark, it's still foreboding, but it's still anthemic. And all the traditional instruments still give a very heavy feel overall. This is a wicked listen, and I strongly recommend anyone check it out. I mean, it's just really good, heavy, different music.
Yeah. I'm also going to go with 4 stars. This isn't something you want to put in to fire yourself up, really. Well, unless you are about to pillage a village with a team of barbarians.
Different strokes for different folks,
Yeah,
man.
you know. Or if you're celebrating your recent pillage of a village with your fellow Vikings.
A job well done.
Yes, yes. If
People well done, too.
you got the treasure and you killed most of everybody so they can't, breed sons to invade your village.
Or identify you.
Yeah. Well, everybody's got beards and face tattoos. Not unlike Post Malone. He's not a Viking, though.
Definitely not a Viking.
That's not... No. The music is very cinematic. You will have visions of forests and battles in your head. This is something to maybe possibly put in to relax before you go to sleep. Or take mushrooms and have a very hellish introspective evening. Or to celebrate Thor and the other Norse gods. Freya, Loki, perhaps.
Tyr.
Yeah. Odin, Black Panther. To Marvel. 4 stars. Einar is a bad man. Yeah, he scares me.
I mean, the braid, that thing took a long time. That's a lot of patience to get out of that. Way to go.
And his voice soothes me.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We will catch you later.
Skull!